Hello, welcome to Footprint. My name is Samuel Attah-Mensah. In this edition, we'll be having a conversation with a man of many parts, a man who has walked the talk, who has ventured different elements of life and has a good story to tell, something that you and I can pick from, somebody that brings joy to our hearts, has been in policy, has been in all forms of leadership. He's still a young man in my estimation, but I will not take the wind out of your sail. Let's see how it goes on this edition of Footprint. We'll be right back. Yes, sir. Uncle Fritz, how are you?
Fine, and how are you too?
Very well, very well. Good
Glad to hear
you.
that. Good to see you too.
And how have you been?
Quite well. I've been well.
Yeah, we thank God. We thank God for good reports. We haven't seen you on stage for a while. We haven't seen you in public life, if you like, for a while. What have you been up to since you got out of politics?
Well, I finished writing my book.
Nice.
My first book, which was named After Midnight. I called it After Midnight. It was just some of my thoughts on paper. And it was published and launched in 2017.
Yeah.
I'm now planning another book, which is not an autobiography, but my thoughts on Ghana and my expectations on Ghana. So the title
I'm sure
is
you have a lot to write.
Ghana, a Nation in Denial. That's the book I'm
Wow.
writing now. So
I'm looking forward to that.
A lot of research.
So Fritz, let me ask you. Your name is associated with R.P. Baffour.
Yes.
And I mentioned R.P. Baffour not as a mere name, but as a brand.
Yes.
Or somebody that's occupied a certain part of our historical space.
Yes.
In the Ghana narrative. So you are Fritz Baffour.
Yes.
And your father happens to be R.P. Baffour.
That's true.
Tell me something about R.P. Baffour before we start.
Well, my father was a very unique man. Sometimes I sit down and really wonder whether he actually lived because of the things that he did. He was a very brilliant man. He was a polymath. He was an artist, an engineer. He sang. He did all kinds of
Mechanical engineer.
A mechanical engineer. The first Ghanaian to graduate on Ghanaian soil, engineer.
Properly so called.
Yes, in 1935. So he was a very remarkable man. He was also a very great father. But the greatness of R.P. Baffour was that he believed so much in Ghana because it was a combination of all the efforts, in his life. Because my father, the antecedents of my father were all from all over Ghana. My father's grandmother, paternal grandmother, was from the north. She was a Dagomba princess. She was the eldest daughter of Yana Yakubu. My father's paternal grandfather was Chief Ando, who was the regent of Elmina, but had his roots from Senyabreku. All right, and then my father's mother, funnily enough, was called Frederica Okain. Though she couldn't, Frederica Okain, she couldn't speak a word of Ghana. But she had Ghana lineage. She was one of the grand descendants of Neo Kanja.
Okay.
Basically because of the interference of the Europeans in Ghana, a lot of people were displaced. Neo Kanja was a very famous Ghana chief, was a Gbesimanche. And his children were sent to Holland. When they came back, when the father died, he was not to be buried because the Ghanas, there's a certain tradition that when you come from a female deity, because our chiefs are supposed to be also, the Ghana chiefs are also supposed to be traditional religious leaders. They are buried they are covered in clay and put on an anthill. So they're not buried the normal way. The children, because they had been Europeanized, took the body into Usher Fort and buried it. And there was a civil strife, so they took some of his children to Elmina, and they remained there. And you'll find the name Okai, and you'll find a few Ga names.
Okai.
Okai.
Not
Okai.
Okang.
Okai. O-K-A-I.
Okay.
Which is the proper Ga. Okai is
Okai.
the Europeanized version of Okai.
Okai.
Yeah, but the Fantis managed to change the name from Okai to Kane.
Kane?
Yes, Kane, K-A-N-E. So you'll find Canes from Elmina are actually originally from Gbese. Now, my grandmother too also was descended from the Tichuman royal family. So we have one of the Tichuman stools in our family house right now. And the Tichuman Henia
So this Tichuman, you mean the Bunu?
Bunu Tichuman, yes.
Okay.
So we have very strong links with Bunu. So with that, and then myself, being my mother being of Ga, and she also had some Bunu antecedents, but pure Ga, when if you were to meet her and see her. So that sort of colored the way my father thought about things, that a nation had to be built through the providence of what had been created by the British, and we had to excel. So I remember when we were going to have our independence, I was just about to turn 5, when I went to my dad and said, what did independence mean? And he said, it meant that the people who were going to be called Ghanaians would be the greatest people on earth. And that was his hope and aspiration. And it passed on to me and a lot of my colleagues and contemporaries that we believe that this country should be far, far greater than it is now. It should be really on the pantheon of stars. So basically, my dad, luckily, became an engineer with the railways, Ghana Railways, Gold Coast Railways. He was one of the first senior engineers, African senior engineers. Then he became a teacher at Achimota School, where he graduated, and did so many things there. I mean, apart from teaching engineering, he was also producing operators and things like that, And then he went to the Accra City Council as the city engineer. All right. So in all those fields, he worked towards building the nation, because I found a diary of his from 1941. And it was amazing, the things he'd written in it. It was as if he'd written it after Ghana became independent. So, and he wasn't the only one. He had so many contemporaries who were very much like that, and I met them. Michael Dianan,
Michael Dianan, yes.
Yeah, Michael Dianan was his mate. My father was a classmate of Buzia, Kwesi Labte, C.J. Bannerman, and all that. And they really believed in Ghana. My father's best friend was J.O.T. Ajiman, who he met in Achimota, who became the managing director of GNTC, and is the father of
Nana Kunedo Ajimara. Yes.
There were others, I mean, in the field of engineering, E.L. Quarte, all those gentlemen were very much
the father of Junior Quarte?
Yes, VRA. They were all part of that group that worked for Ghana, and the great Inokoku, the great civil servant, was part of that team. And then E.L. Saki,
that was
Stanley Okun's father.
Stanley and
the other one. Yeah, so an Ernest. So
let me take a bit out of that. Yes. So it looks to me like all you guys, so you mentioned the Okuns, so yes. Stanley and Ernest,
yes.
Junior Quarte, who used to run Ghana Airways.
Yeah.
All these guys, you were Dadaba people who started, you knew one another.
Very much so, because by 1955 we were living at Ridge, which was called the European Ridge. And all of us were there. And my late elder brother went to Ridge Church School. I went to Christ the King, which was then founded around that time. Some of them went to Ghana International School. We were friends, and then we all went to Ridge Church to worship. Despite the fact that later on I went back to the Catholic Church.
No,
but
this is more discipline.
Oh, it's not. You see, I don't really find that amusing, basically because ours wasn't easy. Our parents were very strict.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I mean, we were not given that chance as if we were privileged.
Children,
We're not spoiled children at all. I was terrified of my mother most of the time because
I'll believe that's based on how most of you turned out. I mean, seeing those I know, the Okons, the Junior Cortes, the yourselves, and the others.
Yes, because my dad said it wasn't a privilege. My dad said we had to work to where they'd reached, and we couldn't do it by thinking that we're better than anybody else.
Yeah.
It had to be from hard work, studying hard, behaving yourself, and all that kind of thing. I remember when I was living on the campus in Kumasi, and I had it in my head that I was the vice chancellor's son. So I was going around, bragging and doing all kinds of things. And then one day my dad came, and he was furious. I mean, his face was like thunder. And he called me and he said, "Fritz, I want you in the study." And when he says that, then you know you're in trouble. And he said, "There is no position in this world as a vice chancellor's son. You're R.P. Baffour's son, and you behave accordingly. You behave with dignity, with a certain elements of gravitas, and behave yourself so that people will look to you and say that, well, you're well brought up." So, that was the essence in which we were brought up. And along with my good friends, the Okuns, the Dianans, the Manyo Planges, the Knights, we all had to behave ourselves because we knew that if we misbehaved in town, somebody would go back and tell our parents, and it wouldn't be too good.
But some level of privilege. I mean, not spoiled children, but privilege.
Privilege because our fathers were on a salary and they had certain privileges, like they lived in a government building, and my father had access to a government car, and it helped us that we weren't poor. We were well cared for. I mean, it wasn't about matter of money.
Now, so an engineer, having done all the things he did. Now, tell me about him becoming the vice chancellor of today's KNUST.
Yeah,
he was the first indigenous to become vice chancellor.
That's correct. That's right. I was the first vice chancellor of the university. I mean, because the university was Kumasi College of Technology. He had left the Accra City Council, or Municipal Council as it was called, and then he went to become the chief transport officer of the country. At that time, all the government vehicles were under one department. He was there, and then about independence, Nkrumah made him the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Transport and Communications. So if you read my father's biography, you'll realize that he was responsible for quite a few of the innovations that this country had, like work with Ghana Airways, Black Star Line, making sure that all those institutions came into place. But at a certain time, Nkrumah moved him because he realized that he was very good at buying things so he worked for the Supply Commission. He was deputy to the Supply Commissioner then. Then Nkrumah said, "Look, this is the man I want to go and change things at the Kumasi College of Technology. We're going to turn it into university because it's going to be the engine. It's going to supply the personnel and the experts for the engine of growth, which was the rapid development of Ghana through industrialization." So that is how he went as the principal. And then when it turned into a university, he was there, so they made him the vice chancellor.
Good. Now, you growing up, you at an early age, you saw your father, and then he had become the vice chancellor of the University of Science and Technology. What was growing up for you like in terms of schooling, and where did you start?
Well, it was fun. My dad was interested in sitting down with us and taking us through some of the rudiments of study, explaining to us beyond what we knew. So I was interested in astronomy and things like that, you know, and the newspaper, he'd come with the newspaper, would read and discuss it. My mother was a midwife, but the old-time midwives were very powerful women. They were also nutritionists. They could dispense drugs and everything. Because my mother she went into the villages. She worked for a time in Adesu. And so she was very particular about the kind of food we ate and, you know, our hygiene and things like that. So the two coupled together gave us a very, showed us our horizons, and we had to head in that way.
Where did you start primary education?
Mrs. Sam's School, which is where the where the old courthouse is, around there. I'm not sure. National Lotteries. Mrs. Edu Sam was a very remarkable woman who started the school. And we all went there. You know, Jerry Rawlings went there, you know, Reggie Sawyer went there. I mean, all the civil servants and very senior Ghanaians sent their children there. It was a kindergarten come primary. And then from there, I went to Christ the King in 57 when I turned 5. And then we moved to Kumasi in 1960. And then I went to Tech Primary. And that's where I finished. And I did my common entrance. And then I went to Prempeh College for a year.
You were in Prempeh for 1 year?
Yeah, I thought I was going to stay there. And then my dad was instrumental in the foundation of Technology Secondary School, which is now called KIS, which is now called the NUST SHS. And he didn't feel it fair that he was encouraging the lecturers and the staff to send their children to that secondary school. And I was in Prempeh College. So he took me out of Prempeh College.
And brought you to TechSec.
Which for me was a downturn at the time. But I learned to love that school because I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people, basically because there were lecturers in the university who also taught part-time. And so we learned a lot.
Wow. Remember some of them in public life?
Yeah. For instance, my cousin, Professor Wilson, my first cousin, is a professor at Noguchi Institute of the Noguchi Institute. He's an etymologist. We had a couple of army officers, policemen. Muntaka Mohammed went to Tech, but he wasn't he was.
He didn't meet you?
No, at all. Far from me. Robert Bentel was an editor at the Ghanaian Times. He was my classmate. Sandy Osajiman, who became an Olympian. He was with us before he went to Pokuwari and became a top athlete. Yes, there's quite a few.
So you did your GCE O-level at Technology Secondary School.
That's right.
After that,
well, I didn't get all the grades, much to my father's chagrin. And so I had to go and do my World War II. I did it in Cape Coast at their Workers' College. So I lived in Elmina.
In Cape Coast?
Elmina. So I went to the Workers' College there.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I
was it purposely to go and do it there?
Yeah, my dad, I wanted to stay by my dad. My dad at that time had been removed from Tech because of the political, Nkrumah had been overthrown, and my dad being very close to Nkrumah naturally was a target of many people. So he had to go before commissions of inquiry and everything. So we moved up from Tech and came back to Accra. My mother set up a midwifery clinic in Bubuashi. And I just decided I wanted to go to Elmina because I didn't really know Elmina. I didn't speak Fanti well and all that kind of thing. So I spent a glorious 1 year in Elmina.
So that's where you picked up your Fanti again?
Well, I'll tell you the secret was, I'll tell you the secret. I picked up Fanti in Britain when I went to school because most of my cousins, like the Wilsons and everything, were in Britain doing their masters and things like that. And my first wife was English. All right, and wanted to know everything. And it's not everything that I wanted to tell her. So sometimes I was forced to speak Fanti. Okay, then I picked it up, and it became something that, and I learned. But my accent is still horrific, and it's not all the words that I can pick up. But my guy is all right.
Good. So, Second World War, we used to call it. I don't know if they still call it that way.
It was
just to better your grades.
Yes,
so
I got my grades. I got my grades, but then my dad said he didn't want me to go back because I had missed a year. All right. So I think it was also my mother. So I decided that I wanted to go out, and I had a brother in Oxford. And he was saying, okay, the best thing for me to do was to come. So I had to work for 2 or 3 years while they were putting together the package for me to go abroad.
In Ghana?
In Ghana. So I worked for GNTC.
Okay.
I was a deputy clerk, which was a very exciting thing. I worked for the provision wholesale, and then I worked for the pharmacy wholesale, and I got to get to grips with Ghana outside that environment that was, so my environment was a little, So I came out and I met people. I met Mokola women. I interacted with them. I enjoyed myself. I went to the nightclubs and followed bands around because one of my brothers was playing.
We'll talk about that bit. That's very interesting. So you're watching Footprints with Honorable Fritz Baffour. And a very interesting story that he's telling us. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, the time he spent at GNTC, a lot of these young people watching us, they don't even know what GNTC means. But we'll be right back.
There is no promise we cannot keep. There is no commitment we cannot honor. There is no delivery we cannot guarantee. There is only one Bethel Logistics Company Limited, a licensed international freight forwarding and clearing agent, a trusted global brand with an extensive network for the movement of air freight and ocean freight worldwide. We are the trusted name for road freight into Western and Northern Africa. We are fully accredited by Ghana Customs and Excise. We cater for all your freight forwarding, customs clearing and forwarding, cross trades, inland transportation, internal cargo tracking systems, customer freight costing and consultancy, cold chain logistics management, logistics and warehousing, quality inspection, and much more. In Accra, Tema, and Takrady, we are always available to ensure easy movement of cargo countrywide. Call us on 0204 528 900 or 0244 707 859. Email info@bethellogistics.com. Locate us in Accra at North Ridge, adjacent Accra Girls High School, or in Tema at Community 4, or in Takrady on the second floor of the GCB building. Website bethellogistics.com. Bethlog, experts in shipping logistics.
Welcome back to the program, and I'm here with Honorable Fritz Baffour. One of those people that you don't even feel reluctant when you are referring to them as honorable, properly so called. Uncle Fritz.
Yes.
GNTC. Now, GNTC at the time was huge.
Yes, at that time, what happened was that after independence, we had big trading houses. In fact, Ghana, the whole thing about Ghana was the big trading houses after the abolition of the slave trade. UAC, Partisans Economies, PZ, all those organizations, trading organizations, came to the fore. They took advantage of cocoa, took advantage of gold, took advantage of the palm oil and everything. And so in return, when they exported things, they brought in things from outside. So we had this imported stuff. And Leventis was owned by a Greek Cypriot, all throughout West Africa, A.G. Leventis. But what happened was that at a certain time he decided to leave, so it was nationalized by the Ghanaian government and became the Ghana National Trading Corporation, which became one of the biggest trading organizations in Ghana. headed by, I think, Sir Patrick Fitzgerald, aided by John Osei-Tutu Agyemang, J.O.T. Agyemang, who eventually became the managing director. And they were into everything. Electronics, they had department stores all over Accra and Ghana. And the big warehouse complex was next to Kingsway, which was then Kingsway, beautiful, had the escalators and things, and you could do all kinds of things there, very interesting. But we had this warehouse complex, and within the warehouse complex was GNTC Bottling, which bottled Coca-Cola. We had the warehouse where we sold things on wholesale, essential commodities, they were called, corned beef, sardine, milk, sugar, flour, and I was the deputy clerk there.
No, you were a big man. At a young age,
the deputy clerk was nothing. I mean, I was one of the lowest of the low. I was earning 25 CDs, 25 pesos, then, which was a lot of money, because you could buy a bottle of beer for 8.5 pesos. And you know, I'm mentioning beer because it's one of my greatest loves, you see.
Oh, still?
Oh, still. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's nothing like a cold beer. So, but let's say, so.
I don't know about that.
Okay. You may disagree with me, but.
No, I don't actually.
But, you know, it was a great thing when we all went, because I joined GNTC with about 5 of my colleagues, a couple of guys from Infansfim, a couple of guys from Achimota. We all were, you know, our bell bottoms and our skin-tight shirts and things like that.
The men in town.
And we worked, you know, at that time, we worked on Saturdays. Ghana, Saturdays was a working day, half day. Wednesday was also a half day. So
Why is that?
That was because of the working week, and then it was changed so that it became from Monday to Friday. And at that time, we closed at 4.
Okay.
You know, so, you know, the hours. So we all it was compended and made into a compendium for the 45 week hours or whatever
hours a week, yeah.
So we would finish, all get together. We had friends who were in the banks. You know, all the students who were doing the Second World
and
War.
Of course, being the son of R.P. Baffour.
But we had friends. I mean, also, you know, in the banks, Standard Chartered, my cousin Richard Mills, Josiah Mills was one of my favorites. He was in the bank. We were all beat at about 1 o'clock at Maraja, which is now Melcombe. At the top, there was a restaurant. And that was the haunt for all the young guys who just finished secondary school or Form 5 and who were working. And we would have a beer and eat chicken and ogle the ladies and things, the young girls and things like that. It was a great life. And then we would go to Metropole. And
the girls were there too?
Oh, there were girls, there were pretty girls. You know, Ghana's always had pretty girls.
Yeah, pretty ones.
Yeah, so, but let's not go there too much. You know,
no, we just passed, don't worry. And then you moved on to the nightclubs.
Yeah, we'd go to the nightclubs and spend our... I mean, this was, you know, behind our fathers' backs, because,
Of course.
We had our ways of jumping over walls and things like that. And
tell me about some of the nightclubs that you guys used to enjoy.
The nightclub that was unreachable for us was Lido.
Oh, Lido at Circle?
Yeah, Lido at Circle was a big nightclub, expensive. That's where all the big men went. And you see a lot of the very posh ladies of the night too also went there. But Tiptoe was our base, because my brother and his contemporaries played the various, they started off as student bands, and when they left school, they all started playing El Polos, the Saints, you know, the Barbecues, I mean, all those bands, and would follow them, you know, because we knew the guys who played.
Yeah.
So sometimes we got in free. But then, because we also spoke impeccable English, some of the less educated ones like to be around us, especially the traders, and they would buy us beer and all that.
We all come for
yeah, that's right. Yes, but it was great fun. It was great fun.
Wow. So Apollo Theatre,
Apollo Theatre, then the Silver Cup. Apollo Theatre, Silver Cup was in that vicinity.
Yeah, all around the same area.
Faisal Alwani opened this Napoleon.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where that's Osu.
That's a Napoleon club. Is it a club?
Yeah, nightclub. And that one was open till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
So if you found yourself there, you stayed till 7 o'clock in the morning. Then we had Nitush, which was also another nightclub. And then we had Downbeat. which was owned by the Down Hammonds, and beautiful. I mean, that's where all the student bands played and things like that. And, you know, I had good student bands. We had Circuit 5, we had the Famous Flames from St. Augustine's, you know, Achibota also produced a few of the great bands. And the funny thing is that most of the guys who played in those bands are now serious professionals. Those who aren't dead. Lawyers, doctors, music teachers. The thing is that we knew that all work and no play made Jack a dull boy, but we had to work, we had to study. I mean, though I was hitting the light fantastic and doing all those things, I was reading. You understand? So that I would not, you know, fail when it came to the.
You didn't think that you guys had a kind of closed community of privileged
not at
children?
all. Not at all.
It was very difficult to break through your circle.
No, it wasn't. Because the thing is that there were certain things that if you were a great singer, if you were a great athlete, you know, you didn't have to come from a special family.
Yeah.
You understand? If you were very clever, you didn't have to come from a special family. And I lived in Colligono, you know, and most of my friends in Colligono were run-of-the-mill people. I mean, was no, you know.
By the time Colligono was.
Oh yeah, we had pharmacists and all that. The senior staff of. But again, we're also encouraged to move with people who would enhance us. You know, where you learn something. And I learned something. I had some rough, tough friends. You know, I had a guy called Samuel Attah-Mensah, who's in Texas now. He was so strong, you know. We followed him around, and nobody could mess around with us when some get was around.
Those were some good days, man.
Good days, yes.
So you did 3 years at GNTC.
Then I left and went to England.
Your father whipped you to go back, or you just decided?
No, my brother found a school in Bath. He was then doing his master's at Bath University. So I went to Bath and did my A-levels. I got through and I went.
That used to be called Bath College, is that correct?
Bath, yes, College of Technology. Yes, Technical College actually.
Oh, okay.
Bath Tech, and that's where I did my A-levels.
My mother-in-law went to the same school years ago, so that's how I know Bath College.
Yes, I did my A-levels there, and then I first went to the Polytechnic of Wales, but it was too far from Bath. At that time, I was dating my first wife, so she was a nurse, training as a nurse. So I shifted and came to Bristol Poly. So that's where
Bristol, which is also close.
Bristol is only 9 miles from Bath.
Wales.
Bath. Wales is about 60 miles.
Oh, okay.
You know, an hour's journey by train.
Okay.
But I came to Bristol, and that was it. And then.
So you did your tertiary.
Yeah, my tertiary. I did a diploma.
Yeah.
But midway doing the diploma, I got married. You know, I mean, I got married. I was very stubborn, so I got married. And I was happy. No, I was stubborn because, I mean, my dad wasn't very pleased because he thought I should finish. And I got a job straight away with Littlewoods, which was one of the biggest trading organizations. Yeah, it was the Littlewoods chain stores. I got a job as a line management trainee, which is like a UAC trainee. And I did 4 intense years of training. I traveled all over Britain. I ended up in Glasgow as the floor manager of the largest Littlewoods store. From there, when I left, I didn't like it. I didn't like being, but I was married and I had to be, I was responsible. I wasn't that responsible, but I was. But I left and I went into advertising. Okay. But I had a very good.
Still in the UK.
UK, yes. I worked for a company called McLaren's. But what happened was that while I was in Bath Technical College, I had a very good tutor, the late Professor Giddings. He became a professor at Exeter University, and he just thought I was very good at English. He thought I had the makings of somebody who would be a very good English scholar. So he took me through the mill. So one of the main things that makes you understand the English language is drama. So, you know, I did acting, I wrote plays, music, that kind of thing. And so when I went to...
But that has stayed with you because...
That has stayed with me because Littlewoods gave me the discipline. Because, you know, the store had to open early in the morning, and I was the most junior of the senior managers. So therefore, I was the one always mandated to open the store. So I went through thick and thin. I
Glasgow?
remember in Glasgow, which is very cold. I remember one time it snowed so badly that I said I wouldn't go. And I almost got the sack because they told me, look, the radio, you've got to listen to the radio, the weather report. If the weather report says don't venture out, then we can understand. But if it doesn't say that, you've got to come to work. So through the whole thing, I worked. And then I went to work for McLaren's, and that's where I realized that I had two gifts. One was producing, and then the second one was writing, you know, because I mixed with the script writers and the magazine writers and things like that at McLaren's.
Did you do literature in English?
Yes, and I got very good grades the very first time.
I mean, see, anytime I hear you speak,
Yeah.
I mean, whether formal or in interaction, you somehow remind me of the late Ambassador Agri Orleans.
My Uncle Jimmy, who I knew very well.
I'm telling you.
Yes.
I'll tell you a short story. I was with him in the UK sometime in '99. We went, it was a government program, and we went to the Commonwealth Office. And then obviously he, I think, was the High Commissioner.
Yes, he
then.
was. Yes.
And then he had to address the meeting, and guys started talking. And there's a white lady by me, Susan Barnes, from the Commonwealth Office, just whispered, said, who is he? I said, he's the High Commissioner. He said, he reminds me of my sixth form English literature. Yeah, so that's what you remind us of.
Yes. But the thing is, one thing that has stuck with me is I read. I read anything. Wow. And, you know, I've got myself quite a good library.
Good.
When you see me coming from my travels, when I was one of the most beautiful things about being a politician is that when you go out and you travel, people buy clothes and things. I buy books. And CDs and DVDs because I like my music, I like my films and all that. That's my indulgence.
Lovely.
Apart from my club beer.
I like that. So Bath College.
Yeah.
How was the experience?
Oh, excellent. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, you see, you go to secondary school in Ghana and it's so strict. You've got rigid rules and things like that. And the first time I walked into Bath Technical College, I walked into what they call the refectory, the common room. You know, people were snogging in the corner, people were smoking and, you know, that kind of thing. I said, what?
Yeah. Is this still a school?
Even in our universities, you have to be very careful. Very laid back. And then the way they taught was also, you know, very laid back. I mean, they made sure that it wasn't only strictly Shakespeare, you had to read other things. I mean, Robert Giddings got me to read The History of Trade Unions. He got me to read The History of the English-Speaking Peoples by Winston Churchill. He said, in order to understand the language, you've got to understand our history and how the language came into being, you know, from a mixture of Celtic, Anglo-Saxon and all that. So when I came to Ghana, that is the thing that I applied. And that's one of the reasons why I went into television, and I wanted Ghanaians to understand that we have common threads. It's a tapestry, you understand. And that's the way I always think, even when within my politics.
Yeah. Let me, so back to Bath.
Yeah.
Who was the British Prime Minister at the time?
Harold Wilson. Ted Heath, and he was defeated.
Yeah.
Harold Wilson. I went there when Ted Heath was, and then during the coal strike or something.
Did you pick anything from their politics at the time?
Yes, I've always been left-wing, basically, I'll tell you that.
I mean, and I take it that socialists,
yes,
not communists.
Not communists, I'm more of a social democrat. I have a deep regard for some aspects of communism. But my politics was colored, I have to admit, by the way my dad was treated. And so therefore, and I come from a very funny family. My mother was a twin, and her twin sister was married to Obeche Bilamte, J. Obeche Bilamte. And my mother was married to Nkrumah's scientific advisor. I was around when Ubeche Blamti was incarcerated. I had to deal with my cousins who were bereaved when he died.
So Jake was your cousin?
Yes, but he was the stepson of my aunt, but we grew up together, and we became, very close friends. But he was to the right and I was to the left. But I learned a hell of a lot from him, from Jake.
So means you both would be in the UK around the same time?
Jake came back in '65, and he started where he worked for GBC. He was a continuity announcer, and he stayed with us. He stayed in our house for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and when I was going, he gave me the right advice. The kind of things to look for and to do.
So Jake came back to Ghana before you went to Bath College.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that was it. But
you're telling us about what you picked from the British politics.
Yeah, I picked Harold Wilson. I looked at the Labour Party, I was more inclined to the Labour Party because the Conservative at that time had a tinge of racism. You had people like
has it changed?
Well, they've now got a lot of actually Ghanaian MPs who are conservatives.
Very. Like Adam Free.
Yes, that's right. These are conservative, and it's surprising because at that time that tinge of racism was there, and even the young Tories in Bath, we used to have arguments, and they used to say things about how great the British Empire was and how Africans were a little backward and things. And these are the things we fought against. But I'll also say something to you. Growing up in Ghana after sixth form was a time of soul music. That was a time of black power.
Yeah.
All right. So we all inculcated that.
Energized.
Yes, and we read books like Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver and all those people. Angela Davis and all those people who are heroes. Okay, so when I went to Bath Technical College, I became the vice president based on the fact that I was able to galvanize the
Students' Union.
The Students' Union. Yeah, I was the vice president for a long time.
Wow.
Till I left. I mean, the 2 years I was there, I was. And incredible. I mean, interacting with people from different countries. We had Zambians, we had Iranians, we had Jordanians, Palestinians, and in one case, when I went to Bath, the first 6 months you had to stay with the landlady, all right, ostensibly to teach you the British ways. And in the landlady's place, the digs, we had, there were several students. I shared the room with a Malaysian. And we had this Crown Prince, a prince from the Emirates.
Who was also a student.
He was also a student. And the very first time he met me, when I had just come, I was late. And I'd just come down to breakfast, and he sat down and he looked at me, and I was looking at his face. And then he said to me, "Boy, you look like my father's favorite slave." Whew. Which he said it out of innocence. But at that time, because of the way that I was conditioned, I lost my temper. I almost went across the table to grab his neck. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I used to spend my weekends with my brother Eric, and would cook, would go shopping, cook, and that kind of thing. He was taking me back to my digs, and we saw this prince pass us by. He had a car, very fast, being chased by Hell's Angels. And my brother said that didn't look good. So he raced, and then when we got there, these guys had taken over from the prince, and he came out, and they were going to beat him. So my brother just stopped the car, and then he got down, and he said, "You guys, don't move." They were looking at us. And my brother just opened the boot, took out a tie spanner, gave me a tie, and we approached the guys, and they ran away. Which was funny. Yeah. And then so we had to escort Saeed, was his name, back to the digs. And he came to apologize to me, and we became very good friends. So it was a very interesting thing. I mean, and then his father, Said's father came. I'm not telling you the story. Said's father came to visit, and Said told him of his African friend. So the father took us shopping, all right? Very wealthy. I mean, I was on 60 pounds a month, you know, for rent and everything, and this guy was on about 6,000 pounds a month, which at that time was humongous. So we went and we shopped. The guy bought me a nice suit, bought me a gold watch. I was very happy. But I thought maybe he would bung me some money, you see. He didn't. But he said I should help Said work and study and all that, and he went away. So I was telling Said, but your daddy bought a suit and everything. He could have bunged us. And he said, yes. Let me tell you something. That would have been the worst thing my father would have done for you. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, look, who's paying your school fees? I said, my dad. What does he want you to be? I said, my dad wants me to be a lawyer. He said, if my dad had given you the money that you thought you deserved, you would have stopped school. And that would have destroyed another man's dream. Just I wouldn't like anybody to spoil his dream about his son. Very deep. Very, very deep. And I just got to understand the mechanics of those who have money and why they do certain things. There's a lot of wisdom behind some of it.
True.
You know, but I'm just saying this as an example of some of the things I learned when I was in Bath.
That'll spell your time in Bath College and
yes, that's right.
You know, anyway. So if you just joined us, this is Footprint, and we are with Honorable Fritz Baffour. He just told us about his university life in the UK. But we here will take a short break. When we come back, we want to know how he exited the UK. So just stay tuned.
There is no promise we cannot keep. There is no commitment we cannot honor. There is no delivery we cannot guarantee. There is only one. Bethel Logistics Company Limited, a licensed international freight forwarding and clearing agent, a trusted global brand with an extensive network for the movement of air freight and ocean freight worldwide. We are the trusted name for road freight into Western and Northern Africa. We are fully accredited by Ghana Customs and Excise. We cater for all your freight forwarding, customs clearing and forwarding, cross trades, inland transportation, internal cargo tracking systems, customer freight costing and consultancy, cold chain logistics management, logistics and warehousing, quality inspection, and much more. In Accra, Tema, and Takrady, we are always available to ensure easy movement of cargo countrywide. Call us on 0204 528 900 or 0244 707 859. Email info@bethellogistics.com. Locate us in Accra at North Ridge, adjacent Accra Girls High School, or in Tema at Community 4, or in Takrady on the second floor of the GCB building. Website bethellogistics.com. Bethlog, experts in shipping logistics.
Welcome back. This is Footprint with Honorable Fritz Baffour. Now, Honorable, so you completed Bath. You had gotten married by then.
Yes.
And, you know, life was easing out for you. Working with, it was a Littlewoods.
Littlewoods,
and then at that time, what other who were the competitors of Littlewoods?
Marks and Spencer's, British Home Stores,
BHS,
and
we didn't have Tesco's then.
Tesco's, but Tesco's was more food.
Yeah.
Right.
Now they're Italian.
Yeah, it does everything.
Everywhere, man.
Yes.
And then Asda
came later.
Later, okay.
Yeah. But the big ones was British Home Stores, Marks and Spencer's, Littlewoods. Sainsbury's was there, but Sainsbury's was also food.
Food, yeah.
Sainsbury's, Tesco even when I left Littlewoods, I went to work for Tesco for a while, but I didn't stay. I didn't like that wasn't my forte. I didn't think it was. Yes.
So how did you finally leave the UK?
Well, I got married, and at least I think after 4 or 5 years, it was paling. You know, I think I married too young. But the lady I married was a very special woman. When I think back, I mean, I think I was too young in terms of my mind. I was a little bit
younger than her.
No, I was older. But I mean, women tend to be more mature than men.
At the same age.
Yeah, the same age. You know,
all other things being equal.
Equal, yes. I mean, and she knew what she wanted. You know, most of the time women know what they want, and I was a little, you know, I wasn't sure. You know, so it faded, and I just didn't feel like. I was then working for McLaren's, and so I decided to leave. So when we broke up and the divorce proceedings started, I didn't see the point in staying in Britain. So I came back to Ghana.
Which year would this be?
1981.
81?
Yeah. So when I came back, it was very, very difficult. I came at a time when Ghana was in very dire straits in terms of the economic situation. Yeah. There were no jobs.
So at this time, President Liban was the president.
In power. Yeah, that was in September. I mean, it's almost. It was in September I came. So 3 months later, he was overthrown.
Yeah. But your dad was still.
My dad left when he left Tech. He went to work for GNTC as a supervising manager for the motors, and then when he attained the age of 60. In 1972, he retired, and then, but that's another story. Because in 72, Achampong really had thought well of my dad, so he put him in charge of a project where they were going to audit all the Ghanaian government cars and find a system to run them. Okay, so he went to work as a consultant to the government. So that was it. So then I think then he started his own business, R.P. Baffour and Associates, which was a consultancy firm, and he traveled around the world doing a lot of things. So when I came back in 81, it was very difficult. The adjustment and everything, I couldn't get a job because the kind of training I had, though my father at a certain time tried to arrange for me to go to Gambia. There was a national training corporation there headed by Attah, who had worked with my dad at GNTC. He was a GNTC general manager at the time.
Who later became the vice president.
Yeah. So it was a little difficult, and I spent a year in Ghana. The only working stint I had. I thought, in order to make money for myself, I taught English to a couple of Ghanaian Lebanese boys who were in the international school. They were preparing for their O-levels. And so I took them through the paces, you know. If I'm allowed to mention it, Talal Fatal was one of them. Yeah, and we hit it up and became very, very good friends. And so I was teaching on weekends, taught English, and then I got a job with Kwame Nyante, with this fishing net factory as a marketing manager, but it didn't last. And I just decided I had to find something to do. So I left. My sister was living in Liberia, so I joined her in Liberia. And again, by the dint of, hard luck.
Around 82?
82, December 82, I was in Liberia. And by 83, I'd become one of the biggest stars in television personalities in Liberia. I had a program called Just For You. And I had to draw on my experience as a producer with the advertising company.
With McLaren's.
McLaren. So then when I came to Liberia, I got a chance to go abroad, back to England. And I met up with a friend of mine from the old days who had become a top producer, Malcolm Gary. And he brought me on board. So I went to work for British Television. I left and I went back to Britain.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I went back to Britain.
So from Liberia?
I was there for 2-3 years, and then I went to Britain, and I worked there for a year or two. When my contract ended, it was linked to my visa, so I had to
Oh,
I had to
okay.
come
So
back.
this is BBC television. Or?
Tyne Tees, which was Channel 4. But because
Tyne Tees, okay,
it
yeah.
was and that was a Channel 4 program that I worked on. Great, but again, I wasn't happy. You know, one thing I found in Britain that disturbed me was that you couldn't present your own views. If you presented your views, they would color it with, oh, is it an African thing or is it some black thing? And later on, they would take that advice and then say it wasn't you. So I realized I was always out of sorts, always arguing. And so when the time came for me, I just said, no, I'm coming back home to Ghana. So I came back. And my dad looked at me and said, this TV thing, you've got to stop. Wow. I said, Dad, no. Anyway, before he died, he came to terms with the fact that I knew my stuff. Yeah, and you know, and the reason why I went into comedy was when I came back from Britain in '85.
You didn't go back to Liberia?
No, I didn't. I came back home.
Well, Liberia had one TV station.
Only one TV station, yes.
Yeah.
ELTV.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And for a long time, people still used to refer to you in Liberia.
Yes.
You know, when I was working in Liberia, people used to ask me whether I knew you.
Yes, I remember when. Yes. I worked for ELTV. I became very, very popular. In fact, I couldn't walk the streets. But
you even had the accent.
I say, my man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I picked it up, you know. But when I came home, I did F&F with Tommy Annan Forsen.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll talk about
that. But I got into MCing because I was a good MC.
Yeah, you still are.
And what happened was that when George Daku came to play in Ghana, it was the biggest thing at the time. I was in May 1985. I'd just come. And I had a friend, Nia Dawu, who was working for working for Herbert Benson's father's company.
The tobacco company?
The tobacco company, yeah. Yes. And they were sponsoring, Hollywood was cigarettes were sponsoring George Daku. And he said, look, I'd like you to come and be the MC because I know you've worked for music, television in Britain and all that. When I got to the gate, the guy said he didn't know me and he hadn't been informed.
Which guy?
The guy at the gate. I won't mention his name because he's passed, but he's a great guy. He became my very good friend. Because I was standing there saying, look, I've been asked to come to them. They said, we've got an MC already. That's Mike Egan. And I said, that's great, but I'm supposed to be helping or something. And he said, well, who are you anyway? And I said, oh, my name is Fritz Baffour. He said, oh, are you Dominic Baffour's brother? You come in. And then Nia Dawu came and said, Fritz, you know, and I went to see Mike. And Mike is my hero. I have a lot of time for him. What a great man. And I went to Mike and I said, I'm supposed to. He said, oh, great. He said, I can't be doing this all on my own. Come. And do you know what happened? George Daku's instruments were so powerful that they blew out the banquet hall electrical system. Because at that time, small, thin wires, you know. So people were sitting in the dark. They paid a hell of a lot of money. You know, and the band had just started, so they had to start fixing everything. They called people from electricity. And while they were doing that, I stepped in. So then I started telling jokes. So we've got my voice. All right, having this deep voice. I mean, it would carry without the mics. Yeah. So when the lights came on, then everybody said, oh, we want Fritz back. Oh. But that became a thing. Then I realized that I had a niche for telling jokes. Yeah. And people would respond. And so I picked that up because 85, I didn't really have a job, and so I realized that I would, that's how.
Okay, so this is how we end this episode of Footprint with Honorable Fritz Baffour. We didn't get to talk about how he got into politics proper, but in the next episode, we promise that we'll be getting there. Thanks for watching. My name is Samuel Attah-Mensah. See you next time.
Footprint is sponsored by Bethel Logistics Company Limited, experts in shipping logistics.